Our topic today has far-reaching implications for our society's future: education. Very recently, our education system has become a battleground of legislative and ethical debates, with various issues ranging from foreign influence in K-12 schools to the implementation of LGBTQ+ curriculum and the controversy surrounding critical race theory. Today, we will try to navigate the complexities surrounding these issues at both the legislative and ethical levels, and seek a deeper understanding of the impact on our children and the values we hold dear. Welcome back again.
And again, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, always a pleasure.
One of my favorite places to be.
The China Communist Party has channeled $18 million in funding into 143 K-12 U.S. schools. These schools are centered around 20 U.S. military bases.
First of all, I would ask that everybody, we have a local perspective, then there's a national perspective, then there's a geopolitical perspective. I'm asking people to back out to the atmospheric perspective. If you look at all the activities integrated from China, you've got TikTok that is different in China than it is in the US. Ours basically dumbs down the education, theirs improves it. The purchasing of land around all Air Force bases, the investment in the teachers' unions, they're buying into all of our colleges. China is an expert at propaganda. That is what they do. They don't believe in education for the sake of education, for free thinking and for expansion of the human process. They believe in controlling the narrative and teaching people to be. In our case, they are afraid of us. We are always dominant in creativity and productivity. What they have decided to do is dumb down our society, and they know that we have a lot of people that will be bought off or that agree with that are leftist or Marxist point of views. And through that process, which is mostly our education process, they are changing the narrative and what we're teaching. Hence my devotion to decentralized education. But I think that's what's going on. Fentanyl designed to destroy our youth. TikTok designed to destroy our youth. Investment in K-12? What else? Do you think they're trying to help them? They're not looking for good engineers over here. They're trying to destroy our society. They're trying to prove our society and the freedoms are a weakness. And again, I go back to Cloward and Pivens. Their perspective was, how do you take down the U.S.? You overwhelm our freedoms and our way of life. You take our freedoms and use it against us. Well, that only works till you tick off the American people. Because the whole idea of our Constitution is we can change it or we can shun the current government and generate a new one.
But this just didn't happen yesterday. This has been going on for quite a while. Why are we taking their money to begin with?
That's a good question. Why are we? Why are we investing in China and China turning around and investing in our educational systems? It's so they control the narrative. I have interviewed...
But we know why they're doing it, right?
Yeah.
We know why they're doing it. Why are we letting them do it? Why are we taking funding?
We have corrupt individuals in our government. Like Ronald Reagan said, what's the scariest, 4 words? I'm from the government, here to help. Well, the creation of centralized anything, okay, energy, education, whatever it is, that allows few people to control the entire narrative. Needs to be broken up. Our country wasn't designed that way. Our country was designed to have the powers separated out. Centralization of power is exactly what the Marxist philosophy is, because it allows them to control the narrative. And what they're doing is just controlling our narrative, and that needs to be broken up quickly.
How do we counter it?
Well, number one is education to the general public, to parents. Number two is hate to say this, I will not hire a college graduate until I've interviewed them. They have demonstrated the ability to think like an engineer or a business person, because typically they think their job is there to create a woke agenda. They've been misinformed. The academia has actually changed the definitions of things, as you see them doing with our verbal skills, but they've changed the definition of anarchy and totalitarianism on the political scale. I mean, there's printed evidence. And I have to point that out to these young people who I like immensely, but I tell them, until you adjust your perspective to a capitalist point of view, you're of no value to me. And that's what's coming out. They're producing Marxists. They're being taught in college. If you ask any college student, he'll tell you, we've been taught, even if he doesn't agree with it, that socialism, i.e. Marxism light, is better than capitalism. And capitalism is an evil process. Yet capitalism has provided the humankind with most innovation, more food, more education, more everything than any other system that was ever devised. Capitalism is a self-leveling system versus a system that man has to control. I mean, centralized education, that means somebody's there going to be telling everybody down that chain what to do and how to do it. They're trying to convert our youth, the next generation and the generation after that, to be Marxists. It must be eliminated. And I mean eliminated. That means we have to get rid of tenure. Tenure is a weapon of the left. That means we have to stop letting the government fund education either in loans, in forgiveness of loans, or through the Department of Education. Right now, an average parent pays their taxes. The money for education goes to the federal government. The federal government turns around and says, state, unless you do what I tell you, I'm not giving you the money that came from your state. So they hold this big hammer. Guess who controls them? The biggest lobbyist for education in the world is the teachers union, okay? So, which is now a leftist organization. In order to degrade our society and what we believe and what we historically have valued, they're now introducing just outlandish programs that left alone would not have been an issue. They're trying to create racism wherever they can. They're trying to build it up. Well, in fact, if you read history, you would have to agree that we're way beyond that perspective. Way beyond it. Not to say that it doesn't exist everywhere. I'm sure it does. But the majority of the interaction in this country have nothing to do with race. And if you are of any color you can name, and you want to get ahead and you're willing to work, it's available to you. I don't judge who I invest with or who I hire based on the color of their skin. I based on the content of the character. I know that's cliche, but that's what I do. I want somebody who's going to make me money. I'll pay you this much if you can bring in more than you cost me. That's just it, period. We're losing track of where we should be, our values, and nobody's paying attention because we're all working too hard, paying additional taxes that are also unconstitutional. We're up to paying, the average person pays 50%, 56% of your earning in taxes now. 56%.
Well, we're taxed on the money. We have income taxes, right? So we're taxed on the money that we make.
Income tax is not a constitutional tax.
And then we're taxed again on the money we spend. Why are we being taxed
and
again?
And then you're taxed again when you sell something that you already paid for.
Which you paid taxes for.
That's correct. So
how do we funnel some of that money back into the state? How do we keep that in the state? I like the idea of where you're going with this. I like the idea of having a choice. I'm not a huge fan of government overreach, but there has to be somebody overseeing this. You got to have the man behind the curtain, right? The Wizard of Oz, the voice.
No, you don't.
You got to have somebody that's or some organization or something that's going to like feed this money back into the education system, say this is in the state, and comply to some standards.
The states have the right to tax for education. The states do. So do cities and municipalities. So typically, what I believe is supposed to happen is the state, that money that goes from taxes should go to the states and not be transferred to the federal government. The states should then allocate it out to the counties, and the counties should allocate it out to the municipalities. Okay, I think that that would go a long way towards us perpetuating values that have been successful. I think that we have too many agendas. We have too many national publications for education that are basically the instructional books on leftist behavior. If you read the books our children are required to read right now, it's frightening. Decentralization it has to be where we go, and the mechanism. I don't want somebody monitoring all that. The mechanism should either be the state or the county, because otherwise somebody's going to siphon something out. I don't want to pay a guy even in the state capital. I don't want to pay his salary to tell me how much I get back. I want the money I pay to go to my school and my child or my grandchildren.
At least, at least in the municipality, wouldn't it be great if we could have a system where you're getting you're paying taxes and in your district, and that money's going into the district schools?
Let me ask you a question. Let's take Chicago, okay, a failing school. So if taxes were kept local, and if there was parental responsibility, do you think the parents would be neglectful as far as the outcome of their child's education?
I don't think so. I think it'd be a motivator for most parents, but I think we need to look at the other side of the coin too. What about, especially in Chicago, what about the lower income neighborhoods? Are they going to be able to support the school system in their district? And if not, where's that money going to come from then if we don't have the federal government?
If we're going to tax, then there should be vouchers, period. A failing school should die. And they should fire those teachers and those administrators. In order for them to get into a school that is successful, they must modify their behavior to be successful. That is the nature of life. So I have no qualms with closing down schools. I would open them up to private entities. Say, can you educate our children effectively? If so, here's our voucher program. It will help you. I would put the burden of education also on companies. There's a big push right now for more labor, more educated labor, more this, more that. Okay? Let's educate our children to make a living.
Maybe more vocational programs?
Vocational, but I would have my company sponsor a school that taught people to work, because they don't know how right now. These kids don't know how to work.
You heard it here first. Ken's going to teach you, or Ken's going to pay you to go to school.
I think that business should. I think the business should sponsor private schools. I have my own philosophy on how that would work. But if businesses were sponsoring private schools, the education that people got was one that would be of value to the companies. Now, as with all things, there must be balance. There are some... We have gotten into almost a fascist. We're getting close. We're like starting to work into a fascist perspective. We have some very large companies in this country, most of them social media or such, that have such influence on education, on those type of things, that the smaller business influences get diminished almost to nothing. I do think this country needs to I was against it for a long. I was against breaking up monopolies or big companies. I don't know if I'm opposed to it all the way anymore, which is kind of counterintuitive for me because I'm a free government, get out of the way. But I think the problem is that these companies have influenced government, and I think that's a negative thing. That should not happen because they're going to get favorable laws and everything else. If they're educating
when
our
the
children,
campaign money's coming directly from them, it's hard not to be an influence.
That's correct. So if they would have the first influence on our education if we went completely the way I thought. So there is a balance. My theory is not perfect, but I know this: centralized education, government-led education is a loser. It just is.
Let's talk about the implementation of LGBTQ plus curriculum in the schools. There's a lot of debate around that right now.
Let me pre-qualify. I have family members that are gay. I love them as much as I can express. Okay, I don't agree with them on at least that perspective or from a religious perspective. But God didn't make me judge. Okay, I love them for whoever they are, whatever amount of humanity they end up being. I love them anyways. So that being said, I don't think that anything that happens or anything that is judged or viewed in a sexual manner has any business being in schools. I actually am not fully supportive of sex education, if you will. I am in favor of biology. Taught as biology, I don't have a problem with it.
Well, California has the California Youth Health Act. So it gives parents the right, if their child decides to tell them, they can opt out of some of the curriculum. They don't have to. They don't have to be a part of it. But that only applies to sexual health and wellness. It doesn't apply to history. It doesn't apply to social studies. It doesn't apply to any other subject.
That's correct. So what they're doing is they're introducing these subjects as a portion of the social studies program, and it should not be. Point blank, it has no business being in the educational process. Again, sex taught as a biological fact or under the biological umbrella, very specifically in reproductive facts, is fine. Okay, but to teach preference, to teach something that is deviant from natural law, something that has heretofore been described as a mental condition. And when I say mental condition, I don't mean mentally ill. I mean something variant to the norm. In other words, it's either a choice or there's a biological reason for that behavior. Whatever it is, it's not mainstream and should not be taught as such. If this society, again, I think I've said earlier, China's goal is to destroy the U.S. from within.
Right.
So, along with that program,
what do you think the LGBTQ plus curriculum in China looks like?
There isn't one. Nor is there in Iran, nor is there in most of the other totalitarian regimes. Russia, it doesn't exist in Russia, not publicly. Now, privately, that's a different thing, which is where I think, I don't care what's behind your door. I really I don't care. And I'm not going to judge you as an individual based on what you do behind that door. But it's not something I want my children knowing about, especially before they're 18 or whatever, some age of accountability, some age with the ability to reason and weigh that against normal behavior.
Yeah, there's also the argument that, we should be teaching our kids to think critically.
They are not taught to think critically. They are taught to go along with what we're telling you. Do not object to the subject matter we're giving you. They're no longer taught to think critically. I beat that into my grandchildren.
Well, maybe if they were, then the subject matter that's being taught in the curriculum wouldn't be quite as important as, how the kids are being taught to learn and digest information.
Again, now you've gone back to analyzing things through a logical process, through biology, through psychology, through some actual real science. Now, I don't have, again, no objections there, as long as it can be proven. But to preach something as a fact that is not a fact, I find to be repulsive. I find to take a child below the age of accountability and allow them to make a mistake that nullifies their future ability to correct it, to be repulsive. As a matter of fact, I think it's criminal. We used to put people in jail for it. Okay? I think there is a growing trend by the, I don't know how else to put this, elite, by a group of people that believe they're elite. Pedophilia is on the rise. They're trying to make that an acceptable point of view. They don't call it pedophilia. They call it adults who love children. Sounds a lot more benign that way, doesn't it? But they're human trafficking on the rise, child trafficking on the rise, child abductions off the charts, child abuse relevant to the abductions, one for one, on the rise, off the charts. This point of view, these people who have the agenda, and I'll tell you this carefully, because it deals with family. I know a lot of people in this community that are not in support of what is going on. It's a political agenda, not a sociological agenda. In other words, it's not a group of people. This is very few people that have an agenda and that are trying to achieve a goal. And I would bet if it was a national vote, even if you could qualify who those people were to vote, I bet it wouldn't win. Because most people, LGBTQ or not, are good people down here. And they don't want to see somebody get forced into a change that they can't reverse. Yet that's what they're advocating. That's what this group is advocating. A very vocal minority. And of course, it's echoed by the national media.
You're saying a minority within the group.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the majority of the group. I think the average person who's gay or lesbian or whatever, you want to deal with here, I don't think they want that for everybody. I think they realize their case is unique, whatever it is. Just a quick analogy or story. There's a local restaurant that my wife and I like to attend. Not that you would know it, but I like to sing karaoke. I scare people out. There was a person that came into this facility every Thursday, whatever night it was. It was obviously a man, because he was probably 6'4", 240, built like a brick outhouse. But he chose to dress with a wig and a dress and high heels. Who was so kind, even though inside it sets you off. You don't know how to react. You don't know what you should say. But this person was kind, nice, acted considerate, did not flaunt it. It wasn't trying to stand out. He was just trying to express himself, I guess. I don't have a problem with that at all. Matter of fact, I can sympathize in some ways, not with the wearing the dress, but expressing yourself. I would guess you won't see much. You won't see that many people react. There are assholes. Sorry, put it so bluntly, but there are. There are racists. There are people that are discriminating against gay. There are those people. They're not the majority. They're the minority. And the majority In most cases, we'll put them down. But we can't be afraid. Those vocal minorities on both sides, the ones who are bigots and the ones who are pushing the leftist agenda, are so loud, these people in here are confused.
But is it really them that's so loud? Or is it the media amplifying their voice?
I include the media in that.
I don't think they can do it on their own.
The media is the mechanism by which they're amplified. Here's something to think about. Back during the Civil War, the most efficient method of communication we had was telegraph. When a major event occurred, it sometimes took a month for the majority of the population of the United States to find out what it was. Most events were dealt with on a local perspective or a local geographic boundary, because a national source of information could not be propagated instantaneously. So by the time, as the flashpoint expanded, it was diminished. So at some point out here, it became a ripple in a lake.
Well, now everybody's got a news outlet in their pocket.
That's correct. And now propagandists, it's a propagandist heaven. I mean, we thought Germany was good at it. China's far more accomplished. China has an army of bots, of artificial intelligent bots. I don't know if you're on LinkedIn. I identify 12 bots a week that are trying to have conversations with me. I like to pull their tail feathers. I think that Elon's artificial intelligence should be developed to identify the negative influencing artificial intelligence on your phone. Should point, a-hole.
Well, you saw the X in the last episode. He bought Twitter.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's got away with, most of the bots on his platform.
Yeah. And how did he identify them?
As well as the censorship.
How did he identify them? He's got a way to tell where they are and who they are. I think we should all have an app on our phone that does the same.
It's not a bad idea.
Okay? I will tell you, at least on LinkedIn, after a while, they say you recognize the conversation because their original programming is so similar. As they develop, they're harder to define. You got to get a lot deeper and lay a lot more traps. But it's definitely something that needs to be addressed because it's in the same subject matter. It's used to propagate point of views that are designed to tear down the United States and to tear down the society that we've been so successful in. We're left to our own problems. We are a dominant society of creative people, and we don't take much off many people, but we're not people that conquer. We're satisfied within our borders. We're willing to help. Can you say that about China, Russia, Iran? No. They have a purpose. They're looking at global domination. That's what they want. I think that the fascist agenda in this country of big business to ally with government, I think it's a case of the tail wagging the dog. I think business and old money has an agenda, and I think they're wagging the dog, wagging the tail being the government. And I think they're looking now to expand their dominance and expand their control of the world. And I think that we stand in their way as a free society. And I think they're taking the long scope. How do you defeat the United States? You slowly. You defeat us by changing the education system. Started in 1970.
Well, there's a group that is they put out a report. It's called the Little Red Classroom, and they're investigating this right now, where they're seeing where the money is coming from, where it's going, what's the agenda behind it, why we're taking funding for our public schools from China. So we're going to look into that report. We're going to gather some information. We're going to revisit this, and hopefully we'll have some more information for you.
I'll take a look at that as well, because it is. I have 11 grandchildren. I am very involved in what's going on, and hopefully at some point I'll have the resources to be influential. I don't know that that'll ever happen, or that God would decide to give me that, but if it is, you can bet I won't be silent.
Well, we need more people to speak up. That's what we're doing here.
I think that's what, I was just going to say that. I think that's what we're doing here. I think that this is a remarkable platform. I would encourage anybody watching us, if you're watching us, I would say you're part of the informed mass, not the uninformed. And I would encourage you to continue that trek. We need to care. We need to do more. We need to be responsible citizens again. I think that is where we must be to survive this. And I think it's going to be a close contest. They've gotten a big head start on us. We didn't see them coming.
Well, we're going to do our research. We're going to dive into it. We're going to come back and talk about it some more.
Well, if nothing else, we'll work hard at it.
Sounds good, Ken. Well, it's evident that the landscape of U.S. education is constantly evolving, presenting us with challenging questions at the legislative and ethical levels. As we navigate these debates, we must strive to find common ground while respecting diverse perspectives. Our children are the future of this nation, and it's essential to ensure they receive a well-rounded education that prepares them to be informed, critical thinkers, and engaged citizens. Join us next time on America's Front Line.